Okay, good day everyone, my dear students. So today we are going to continue our next lesson. So we are now on lesson number 7. Lesson number 7 will focus on the lesson which is about the sum and the product of the roots of a quadratic equation. So in this lesson, you are going to find out how the sum and product is being used uh, in how the sum and product of the roots are being used in in a quadratic equation. So here you are going to find out for the sum and the product of the roots. At the same time, and vice versa, given the sum and the product of the roots, you can also identify here the given quadratic equation. So to start with, let's start it with this given equation. The equation given is x squared minus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So that is a quadratic equation. So for us to find out for the sum and product of the roots of that quadratic equation, let us find first the solutions. So meaning to say, let us solve first for that given quadratic equation using any method. So in that given equation, I will make use of factoring as a method. So that means I will look for factors of 3 that when added, the sum is negative 2. So I will use factoring. So I will come up with a binomial factors as x minus 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. So again, when you multiply, that those are factors of negative 3, that when added, the sum is negative 2. That should be negative 3 and positive 1. And the right factors for x squared are x times x. That forms the first terms of its factors. Then from there, using the zero product property, we can separate both factors equated both into 0 so that we will come up with the solutions for that given quadratic equation as positive 3 and negative 1. So that is by just simply moving the constant term to the right side of the equation to end up with the solutions as x sub 1 equal to 3 and x sub 2 equal to negative 1. These are the roots or the solutions to that given quadratic equation. So ang focus ng discussion natin ngayon is about the sum and the product of the roots. What if we are going for us to find what if we are going to find for the sum of it? So that means the solution number 1 plus the solution number 2. So just simply apply it, substitute, we come up with 3 as a super solution plus the second solution as negative 1. So it will come up with 2, which is the sum of the roots of the given quadratic equation. So, sum of the two roots. Well, how about the product? You're just going to multiply x sub 1 by and x sub 2. So you'll come up with positive 3, which is x sub 1 times negative 1, which is x sub 2. We'll come up with the product as negative 3. So with these roots of the given quadratic equation, we got the sum and the product of it, which is the sum is 2, while the product is negative 3. But if you're going to look at its sum and product, and looking at the equation, the original quadratic equation given, or the equation given, so uh, you will see uh, a comparison with it. If you will compare it, so parang may pagkakatulad sila. So later on, malalaman natin yan as we move on discussing about this topic. So now, paano nga ba natin kinukuha yung sum and product of the roots in a given quadratic equation without even solving for the given quadratic equation using any method? So we do have a simple way of doing it. So paano yon? So let's have this given quadratic formula here. This quadratic formula will help us to identify yung the easier method that we can apply in order for us to find for the sum and the product of the roots. So, medyo pahirapan muna natin ng konti bago tayo pumunta doon sa madali. Okay. In the quadratic formula, meron tayo doon positive, negative. So that means we are using the quadratic formula, we are getting the two solutions there. So what if we are going to add the two solutions to find for the sum of the roots? So if we are going to find for the sum of the roots. So, x sub 1 plus x sub 2. So, yung plus or minus sign na, pag-ihiwalayin natin yan. So, ito yung negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a plus, because we are adding, plus negative b minus. Ito yung plus, ito yung minus. So, we are adding the two solutions using the quadratic formula here. So, if we are going to simplify it, we know that square root of b squared minus 4ac will be cancelled out because this is positive and this is negative. So, they are in opposite signs that have the um, same term. So, some positive, then the other one is negative. So, this square root sign together with its radicals will be cancelled out. So, what will be left are just negative b and negative b here. And all over 2a. So, we'll come up with negative b plus negative b will end up to negative 2b. Over, since they have the same denominator, so simply copy the common denominator to a. Then in the case of this, we can still simplify 2 here. So pag simplify natin 2, mangyayari, ma-cancel out ngayon yung 2. But negative will still be there. So we'll come up now with x sub 1 plus x sub 2 is equal to negative b over a. So that negative b over a, which is the sum of the roots, yun yung gagamitin natin for us to find out for the sum of the roots. So ibig sabihin, we only need negative b over a. So when you do a given quadratic equation, all you have to do is to find out for the value of b, then you get the opposite of it, then over the value of a. Then you already have the sum of the roots of the quadratic equation. How about the product? Again, let's make use of quadratic formula again. So this time we are going to multiply the two roots. So if we're going to do that, it will become like this. So if we're going to multiply, the product of the roots is equal to yung plus and minus na yon, pinaghiwalay natin, and we are multiplying the two. So when we multiply it, we are going to apply here yung FOIL method. So pag in-apply natin yung FOIL method, negative b times negative b, that would be positive b squared. Then minus, so since it's like sum and difference of two terms, so we simply multiply this. Pag binultiply natin itong dalawang to, we end up siya into just this. So it's just like we are going to remove the square root sign here. So that will be b squared. So negative b times negative b is b squared. Minus, when you multiply these two, so maka-cancel out yung square root sign. Then matitira is b squared plus 4ac all over 2a times 2a, you come up with 4a squared. Then simplify natin, b squared minus b squared will be cancelled out. So mai-eliminate yung b squared minus b squared. Ang matitira na lang ay 4ac all over 4a squared. And also, ma-cancel out yung 4a. But in the denominator part of it, may iwan pa siyang a. Because in the denominator, but it's 4a squared. So we only cancel 4a. So there is still a na man-iiwan on the denominator part. So that's why it will become c over a. So if we are going to multiply the product of the roots, or if we're going to get the product of the roots of a given quadratic equation, all you have to do is to apply yung product of the roots, which is equal to c over a. So paano yun? In a given quadratic equation, all you have to do is to locate. Just simply locate the value of c, or the numerical coefficient, or the constant term, to be specific, over the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term. So just divide it, then you'll come up with the product of the roots of a given quadratic equation. So now, in order for us to do that, so let us here, we do have here things that we have to take note. Now that things that we have to take note, still will hide it through an acronym para mas madali natin matandaan. So in order for us to find the sum and the product of the roots, let's take note of this. So these things that we have to take note, again, we'll hide it to an acronym and we'll call it as them. So bakit nga ba them yung ano natin, yung things that we have to take note. So them, it's because we are pertaining to them, the others. So them, it's because you need them. You need them for you to grow in life. So, walang taong nabubuhay mag-isa. Sinasabi nga, di ba, no man is an island. So, whatever things na nararanasan mo sa buhay mo o yung mga experiences na nararanasan mo sa buhay mo, lahat yan nararanasan mo ng kasama mo sila. So, ibig sabihin, with the help of them, so you can achieve what you want to achieve in life. So that them that we are pertaining to can be your parents, can be your friends, can be your loved ones. Kung meron ka mang boyfriend or girlfriend, that can be them. Or pwede yung mga taong nakapaligid sa'yo. Kasi lahat ng tao na nakapaligid sa'yo, including those persons close to you, all of them plays a very important role in order for you to grow. So, yung mga nakakasalamuha mo sa araw-araw, doon ka nakakakuha ng mga experiences mo sa buhay na magagamit mo in the future. So that's why, if you want to achieve what you want to achieve in life in the future, so wag kang matakot pakisalamuha sa iba. Most specifically, when you do have problems. So yung problems, hindi yan tinatago. So, hinaharap yan, tapos hinihingi ng tulong. So don't just solve it by yourself. Kasi baka pagkapag ganung case, hindi ka nakakapag-isip na mabuti, lalo na if you do have yung heavy problems, mabigat na mga problema, the usual is hindi ka makakapag-isip ng mabuti. So, you need them. You need your friends to talk to, sabihin nyo sa kanila, or basta kailangan mo na mapaglalabasan nung problema mong yon. Kasi in that way, gagaan yung pakiramdam mo, mas makakapag-isip ka ng mas mabuti. So, kasi always remember that lahat ng problema na mararanasan natin, lahat yan may solusyon. Maaring hindi pa agad mabigay sa yung solution, pero in due time, darating din yung time na malalaman mo na ito pala yung solution to that problem. So, bigla na lang magsasink in sa'yo yung paano ba yung gagawin mo para masolusyonan yung problema mo. So, in that way, natutulungan ka ng mga kaibigan mo, ng magulang mo, ng mga taong nakapaligid sa'yo. So, wag natin itatago. I-share natin sa iba, lalo na yung mga ka-close natin, then for them to understand us, or para maintindihan kayo, para maintindihan nila kayo. So, wag itago. So, you need them. Because them, those persons na nakapalibot sa'yo, they will play a very important role in order for you to grow in life. So, that's the message of that things that you have to take note na tinatawag nating them. So, ano ba yung them na yan? Let's start with TH. So, TH stands for the sum of the roots of a quadratic equation can be determined through negative b over a, just like what we have earlier. So sabi natin, for us to find out for the sum of the roots, all you have to do is to apply negative b over a. So we just need to find out for the numerical coefficient of the linear term, get the opposite of it, that will be the numerator, then the denominator will be the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term. Then simplify it, that simplified form will be the sum of the roots. On the other hand, EM stands for embodied on the product is applying the C over A. So for you to find this time the product of the roots, so you are just going to apply C over A. You just need to find the constant term in the given quadratic equation as the numerator, then divide it with the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term. So mas maganda if your equation is written in general form or in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Because in that way, you can easily identify or we can correctly identify the values of a, b, and c. And again, for you to um, find the sum and the product of the roots of a given quadratic equation, just take note of the value, just take note of the things na tinatawag nating them. Now, let's apply this through examples. So let's have your example number 1. So on example number 1, x squared plus 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. So in order for you to find for the sum of and the product of the rules, you have to find first the value of a, b, and c, because that value will help us to identify that sum and product of the roots. So the value of A is 1, B is 2, while C is negative 5. So first, let's find for the sum of the roots. So if we want to find the sum of the roots, we need the formula negative B over A. The value of B here is 2. So negative of 2, we come up with negative 2 over the value of A, which is 1. So that we'll have negative 2 over 1 or negative 2 divided by 1. So we'll end up to the answer as negative 2. So that is the sum of the roots. How about the product of the roots? So for the product of the roots, we just need to apply this time C over A. What's the value of C there? The value of C is negative 5. So that is to be put here on part of C. We are going to substitute it. Then the value of A is 1. So we'll have negative 5 over 1, or in simplified form, that will be negative 5. So therefore, the sum of the roots is negative 2, while the product of the roots of a given quadratic equation is negative 5. Negative 2, negative 5. So if we're going to look at it, kung analyze mabuti, yung 2, yung number na 2, tsaka yung number na 5, nandoon din yon sa given quadratic equation natin. Mamaya i-explain natin kung paano yon. So now let's try another example. So in example number 2, the given is 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 is equal to 0. Again, the value of A, B, and C there are A is 2, B is negative 5, while C is equal to negative 3. So to find the sum of the roots, we simply need negative B over A. So in negative B over A, we come up with negative of negative 5. So the negative of negative 5 is positive 5 over the A is 2. So we'll come up with positive 5 over 2. So even though the 5 is not exactly divisible by 2, but even though uh, 5 is not exactly divisible by 2 and 5 over 2 is improper, so we can already accept that as an answer to the sum of the roots. So no need for us to transform it into mixed form, because even if it is improper, as long as it's already the lowest term of it, then it's already acceptable. So ang sum of the roots natin ay 5 over 2. How about the product of the roots? So it will we can find it by using C over A. The value of C is negative 3, while the value of A is 2. So we do have negative 3 over 2. So that the sum of the roots of this given quadratic equation is 5 over 2, while the product is negative 3 over 2. Now let's have example number 3. In example number 3, we do have 3x squared there minus 9x plus 6 is equal to 0. So recall natin ulit to find for the sum of the roots, we need the formula, we need the expression negative b over 2a. And negative b over a rather. Negative b over a. So the value of b in this given equation is negative 9. So we are going to the sum of, find for the sum. The value of b is negative 9. So negative 9 divided by a, which is 3. So negative b or negative of negative b, negative of negative 9, that will be positive 9. So positive na yon, divide by 3, you come up with the sum which is equal to 3. Now, to find for the product, we need C over A. So, ang value ng C ay 6, divide by A which is 3. So, we do have 6 divided by 3 which is equal to 2. So, therefore, the sum is 3 while the product of the roots is 2. So, did you get example number 3? So, let's try more examples. So, let's have your example number 4. So, the given is 5x squared plus 2x plus 20 is equal to 0. Again, let's find out for the sum of the roots. So, for the sum of the roots, we need the expression negative b over a. Negative b over a. The value of b, again, here is 2. The value of b is 2. So negative of it, that would be negative 2. That would be your numerator. While the value of a is 5. So we do have negative 2 over 5. So since it's already the simplest form, so your sum of the roots is equal to negative 2 over 5. How about the product of the roots? So that would be 20 is the value of C. Divide it by 5 as the value of A because the product of the roots, makukuha natin using the expression C over A. So the value of C is 20. Divide by the value of A, which is 5. We come up with the product as 4. So therefore, again, with this given quadratic equation, we can say that the sum is negative 2 over 5 and the product is 4. Next example, number 5. So for example, number 5, the given is 3x squared is equal to 2x plus 7. If you're going to look at the given equation here, it's not yet written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. So the best way to answer it is to transform it first into the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0 in order for us to identify correctly the values of a, b, and c. Pero pwedeng hindi na natin gawin yon as long as you know that in your mind, you are already moving that things that we have to move on the left side for us to arrange it. So pwedeng gawin natin siya through our mind na ipakita doon na ina-arrange natin siya in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So ang kailangan natin for the sum is negative b over 2a. Pero kung gagamitan, since positive to, we have to move it first to the right side of the equation. Pag minove natin, magiging negative. So ngayon, ang tamang value for b ay negative 2. So negative of negative 2 will be positive 2 over the value of A. Wala namang problema tayo sa value of A because it's already on the left side of the equation. So the value of A is 3. So we do have 2/3 as the sum of the roots. How about the product? So yung 7 is on the right side. So for you to identify correctly the value of C, you have to move it to the left side of the equation. So pag minove mo yon, that will become from positive 7, magiging negative 7. Negative 7, ang kailangan natin for the product ay C over A. So negative 7 yung C natin over the value of A, which is 3. So therefore, we can say that the product is negative 7 over 3. So 2/3 is the sum, while negative 7 over 3 is the product. Next, number 5. Similar example yung number 6 rather. Similar example yung number 6 na dun sa number 5. Pareha sila na hindi naka-arrange in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. Pero pwedeng gawin na natin yung isa-isa because we only need the values of a, b, and c, di ba? So, pwedeng paisa-isa natin gawin yung pagkuha ng sum and product. So, let's start for the sum first. To get the sum, again, we need negative b over a. So, this is your b. So, you have to move it first to the left side of the equation. So, from negative 5, it will become positive 5. So, ibig sabihin, the value of b when you move it to the left side of the equation is positive 5 now. So, positive 5, according to to find the sum of the roots, we need negative b. So, positive 5 yun. So, negative of positive 5, that would be negative 5 over the value of a, which is 1. So we come up with negative 5 over 1. In simplified form, that would be negative 5. While for the product of the roots, so move yung negative 24 to the left side of the equation, magiging positive 24. And we need C over A. So positive 24 divided by the value of A, which is 1, we come up with 24 divided by 1, which is equal to 24 as the product of the roots. So therefore, negative 5 is the sum, while 24 is the product of the roots of this given quadratic equation. Now, this time, let's do the opposite. So this time, given the sum and product of the roots, we are going to determine the quadratic equation. So paano natin gagawin? Let's try it through example number 7. So for example number 7, the sum of the roots is equal to 2, while the product of the roots is equal to 5. Dito natin may papakita yung kanina, di ba, na yung numbers usually, if your A is equal to 1, yung numbers ng sum and product natin, nakikita rin natin doon sa given equation. Dito natin may papakita. So, again, the sum of the roots is equal to 2, while the product is equal to 5. So, una, that sum of the roots, the opposite sign of it is the middle term's numerical coefficient of the quadratic equation. Again, the opposite sign of that sum of the roots is the middle term's numerical coefficient. While that product of the roots, that is the constant term of the given quadratic equation. So, yung first term natin, we do not have problem on that. It's because the usual is we made use of the variable x, and it should be in a quadratic term. It is a variable that was raised to the second power. So if we're going to find out for the equation, the quadratic equation with this sum and product of the roots, we come up with first term is x squared. That is the quadratic term. Then opposite sign of the sum will be the middle term's numerical coefficient. Positive 2 yun, magiging negative 2, which is its opposite sign. So magiging negative 2x. That will be the linear term. Then sabi, the product will form the constant term. So that would be 5. Then equate it into 0. So, for number 7, the sum of from the given sum na 2 and product na 5, we can determine the quadratic equation x squared minus 2x plus 5 is equal to 0. Nasa yung 2 and 5 na sinasabi natin. Ito yun. Nasa gitna yung sum, nasa constant term yung product. But when we are talking about the sum, it should be the opposite sign of the given sum of the roots. So hopefully naintindihan yon. Pero kung di man naintindihan, let's try another example. So let's have example number 8 here. So the sum of the roots is negative 7, and negative 3 rather, while the product of the roots is negative 7. So sabi natin, for the sum of the roots, for us to find out for the equation of the quadratic, for us to find out for the quadratic equation, so we have to get the opposite of the sum. From negative 3, the opposite of it is positive 3. That positive 3 will be used as the numerical coefficient of the middle term of the quadratic equation. So we know that the first term is x squared. Then opposite sign of the sum na negative 3, that would be positive 3x or plus 3x. Then that product with the same sign of it, that will be the constant term. So minus 7, then equate it into 0. So with a given sum na negative 3 and the product which is negative 7, we can come up with the quadratic equation as x squared plus 3x minus 7 is equal to 0. Next, number 9. So number 9, the sum is 5 where the product is 12. So again, for the sum, since positive 5, then we'll get the opposite of it. The opposite sign of it is negative 5. Again, the first term is x squared. Opposite sign of the sum is negative 5. That will form the numerical coefficient of the the middle term or the linear term. Then the product will form the constant term together with its sign. So that will be positive 12. That's why it's plus 12 equal to 0. Nakuha ba yun? So let's try another example here. What if fraction yung given sum and product natin? So if it's fraction, for example, with the same denominator as this, the sum is 1 half, while the product is 3 over 2. So if that is the case, unang-una, that denominators na parehas, that two, that which are the denominators of their sum, and the sum and the product, that would be the numerical coefficient of the first term or the quadratic term. So it's not anymore x squared katulad ng examples na last natin. So since fraction yung given natin sum and product, so yung pares sa denominator na yon will be the numerical coefficient of the first term. And again, the numerators of it will form the binomial, the middle terms numerical coefficient and the constant term. So yung 1 na yon, opposite nun will be the middle terms numerical coefficient, while the 3 here with this, that same sign will be the constant term. So the first term will be 2x squared. That's because of this. That 2 will be the numerical coefficient of the first term. So ito yon. Then opposite sign of 1, which is negative 1, so it will become minus x. Because if your numerical coefficient is 1 or negative 1, we do not have to write 1 anymore because it's already understood that its numerical coefficient is 1 or negative 1. So minus x, then same sign of the product, which is 3. So we come up with plus 3 equal to 0. So that's how we do example number 10. But what if your example is like this? So similar example to number 10. So same denominator tayo, 4. Ang sum natin ay negative 3/4 while the product is 1/4. So that 4, same denominator, will be the numerical coefficient of the first term. So that will be 4x squared. Then looking at the sum, the numerator of the sum na negative 3, let's get the opposite sign of it. And that would be positive 3. So that will form the middle term's numerical coefficient. That would be plus 3x. While this numerator of the product na 1 will form the constant term of the quadratic equation. So that will be plus 1 equal to 0. So with the given sum which is equal to 3/4 and the product which is equal to 1/4, we'll come up with the quadratic equations. We'll form the quadratic equations as 4x squared plus 3x plus 1 equal to 0. But what if the given sum and product are like this? So it's not anymore same fraction, but not anymore the same as same denominator. So this time the denominator of the sum is 2 while the product is 3. So what we are going to do is to transform it first into similar fractions by getting the LCD. So between 2 and 3, so just multiply them to find for the LCD. The LCD is 6. That means we are going to make 1 half and negative 2/3 as fractions with the same denominator. Kasi mas madali na kunin yung quadratic equation if the given sum and product are fractions if they have the same denominators. So using the LCD 2 and using the LCD na 6 by multiply, that is by multiplying 2 and 3, we have 6 here. So for us to get the numerator, so 6 divided by 2, that would be 3 times 1, which is 3. So 3 over 6 is equal to 1 half. They are now equivalent fractions. So instead of 1 half is what we are going to use, we are going to make use of 3 over 6. While for negative 2/3, that 6 is the LCD, divide by 3, you come up with 2 times negative 2, you come up with negative 4. When you simplify negative 4 over 6, that's also the same as negative 2 over 3. They are also equivalent fractions. So ang goal natin again, when the two fractions are the similar fractions, we have to make them first similar para makuha natin yung quadratic equation na hinahanap natin. So ulitin natin, since they already have the same denominator, that same denominator will be the numerical coefficient of the quadratic term. Then, that numerator of the sum na 3, opposite of it, which is negative 3, will form the middle term's numerical coefficient, while the numerator of the product, the negative 4, will form the constant term. So that will be 6x squared minus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. Ito yung 6. Ito yung negative 3, which is the opposite of this. Then ito naman yung negative 4, which is the same sign of the product of the roots. So with that given sum and product, which is 1/2 and negative 2/3 respectively, we come up with the quadratic equation na 6x squared minus 3x minus 4 is equal to 0. Now, this time, let's do determining the quadratic equation given this time the roots. So that's different from the sum and product of the roots. This time the roots are given and you are going to determine the quadratic equation. So paano? Let's have this example. So let's have example number 13. So the root number 1 is 8 while the second root is negative 7. So for you to identify, you to determine the quadratic equation, just like yung last example natin, so dapat alam natin yung sum and product of the roots. So since given yung roots natin, we can identify the sum and product of the roots. When we add the two, we come up with 1. Because 8 plus negative 7, the sum is positive 1. When you multiply the 2, 8 times negative 7, you'll come up with negative 56 as the product. Now, this sum and product will be the one to use to find or to determine the quadratic equation. So again, the opposite sign of the sum will be the numerical coefficient of the middle term, while the same sign of the product will be the constant term. So we do have still, the first term natin ay x squared minus x, which is the opposite of 1, then minus 56, which is the same sign of negative 56, equal to 0. So with the given roots of 8 and negative 7, so we determine the quadratic equation by getting first the sum and the product of the roots, then form it by getting the opposite of the sum while the same side of the product. So we'll end up to the equation, the quadratic equation x squared minus x minus 56 is equal to 0. Next, example number 14. The sum is negative 2 while the first root is negative 2 while the second is 6. So again, ang gunang gagawin is to find for the sum. What is negative 2 plus 6? So that will be equal to 4. How about negative 2 times 6? That would be negative 12. So 4 and negative 12 will form the quadratic equation. The sum is positive 4 while the product is negative 12. Again, recall natin, when we are talking about the sum, we need the opposite sign of it. While for the product, it's the same sign of it. The sum, the opposite sign of the sum will be the numerical coefficient of the middle term, while the same sign of the product will be the constant term. So that will come up with x squared minus 4x, the opposite sign of this, minus 12, the product of the roots, equal to 0. So given the roots negative 2 and 6, and we found out the product, which is 4 and negative 12, we form the quadratic equation x squared minus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0. So meaning to say, if we are going to solve this quadratic equation using any method in solving quadratic equation, we will come up with the solutions as negative 2 and positive 6. Next, sample number 15. The roots are negative 11 and negative 3. Again, what would be the sum of the roots? Negative 11 plus negative 3 will have negative 14. while negative 11 times negative 3, we come up with positive 33. So let's form now the quadratic equation. Opposite sign ng sum will be the middle term's numerical coefficient, while the product will be the constant term. So we come up with x squared plus, because it's the opposite sign of negative 14, that will be positive 14x. Then same sign ng product will be plus 33 equal to 0. With the given roots of negative 11 and negative 3, and finding the sum, which is negative 14, and the product as 33, we form the quadratic equation x squared plus 14x plus 33 equal to 0. So that would be all for today. I hope that you understand our lesson that we tackle today.